slap hands, and all of a sudden this guy's got 3 traps on him. He's got 2 left. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a tough one, So Mika got popped for steroids, and I'm sure he was doing it a long time before he got popped. The AOJ wasn't the best environment for us. That's where we kind of felt the support the least. It's important to not kind of force something that's not for you. And I think if there was drug testing in ADCC, there wouldn't be an ADCC.
Hello and welcome to the Talk Jitsu podcast. I'm your host today, Joey. No Jordan or Mike with me today. Instead, I'm going to have a very special guest for you guys shortly. I'm going to have Kade Ruotolo. Kade is the reigning ADCC 77 kilogram champion. He's also fights for ONE FC. He's their current lightweight champion, which he'll be putting that title on the line September 6th against Mikey Maia, and was sure to be a fantastic match. He's also making his MMA debut for ONE FC June 7th. You can catch that on Amazon Prime. So we're going to talk about both those things and a lot more coming up in a second. So without any further ado, here's Kade Ruotolo. Awesome. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, I started jiu-jitsu a long time ago, and you and your brother were one of the first kids coming up that were almost like these child stars. Like, I remember being I think it was like a blue belt or a purple belt, and someone was telling me hey man, you got to watch these yellow belt kids. They're killing it. They're amazing. And of course, me being an adult blue belt, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm sure these kids are really good. Here we are years down the road. You guys are winning championships all over the place. Just tell me a little bit about coming up as a kid and the success you had and the spotlight on you.
Yeah. Thank you for starters. It started a long time ago. That's for sure. We were basically 3.5 when we were first thrown in. We did our first couple competitions a week or two after that. It's been a part of our life our entire lives, and my mom, you could, for the child star. I'm not using your verbiage, not mine, but the child star, right? All that's to blame for my mom. She was crafty with the camera and already kind of making little edits together before it was really even a thing, right? So all the credit goes to her. Super thankful that she was able to make those highlight videos, and like you said, it kind of was the start of our brand, you can say, as the Ruotolo brothers. So as we're starting to grow our name as kids, and as long as the results and the competitions followed, it's just kind of what's been happening, and now we're here today.
That's awesome, man. Having supportive parents, especially as a kid, must be, I guess that's the most important thing. But now you see so many more of these young kids coming up. You're looking at trials and the young kids winning. Do you ever think that you and your brother were maybe a role model for these kids coming up, going hey, maybe I'm only 12, 13, but these guys did it, and maybe I could follow in their footsteps?
No, without a doubt. And I think, my brother and I, we were kind of like that, or at least one of the first generation of kids to start training basically from being potty trained. At that time, jiu-jitsu was still so, I think there was one jiu-jitsu gym in our area, and the entire, Huntington Beach, probably even maybe a handful of gyms in all of California, at that time, right? So jiu-jitsu was still very small, and even the people in jiu-jitsu were more MMA fighters trying to learn jiu-jitsu, or there still wasn't that generation of kids who were born on the mats and raised on the mats, So I think my brother and I, alongside a handful of other kids, were kind of that first generation of kids that were bred into jiu-jitsu.
No, that's awesome. I know, when I first heard of you guys, I think you were at AOJ with the Mendez brothers. Can you just tell me about that experience? And I know you're at Atos now, but how supportive have your coaches been in the different gyms you've been out of? Obviously, as I'm a coach, if I had a 12-year-old kid come into my gym and tell me they want to be a world champ, I'd be let's settle down there a little bit, buddy. But clearly they were supportive of you. And what was that process like?
Right. Yeah. That's one thing my brother and I, we always talk to each other about, and make sure that, that doesn't go without gratitude, is our upbringing in jiu-jitsu. From a coaching standpoint has been, some of the best. We're so blessed to have that. We started off at Kleber Jiu-Jitsu, which is more fundamentals. We were 3 years old, right? So just the simple closed guard, things like that. After Kleber's, we went to this gym called A-Team Jiu-Jitsu, which was a Checkmat affiliate. So we learned a lot more of our deep half guard, a lot of our Lucas Lech style guard, and things like that over at A-Team. And we were there for a long time. So a massive portion of our jiu-jitsu actually came from A-Team. After A-Team, we had gone to AOJ for about 4 years. And we were training there, learned a bit more the Berimbolo style game, a lot of the more De La Riva, trickier style kind of things. And then, of course, the last 5 years at Atos headquarters, all the wrestling, the super strong. Atos has got it all really, but the passing and everything like that. So we've kind of gotten a chance to, it's not like we were at one style of jiu-jitsu our entire life. We got an opportunity or a chance to like, absorb the fundamentals, absorb the half guard, and that's why we feel comfortable kind of no matter where the fight plays out. We're good off our backs, we're good on the feet, we're good at standing on top. So I think that all just comes from our upbringing in jiu-jitsu and our you could say supportive coaches. The AOJ wasn't the best environment for us. That's where we kind of felt the support the least in the most respectful way possible. And I think that's a huge decision for athletes. If you're not growing in your environment the way you feel like you should, or you don't feel when your gym's for you and when it's not for you. So it's important to not kind of force something that's not for you, and not that one thing's too hard, I got to go to another gym or anything like that. But as far as the environment in the gym, it's important to be in a place that you love to walk into every day.
No, I think that's super important. I mean, obviously not to the same level of success, but like I've trained at a lot of gyms. I've moved around a lot, and I tell my students now, like, some of those gyms were great gyms. I'm sure they're perfect gyms for other people, but you've got to find the place that's the right for you. And like, obviously you and your brother are like super creative individuals. You've got a very unique style. So like finding a gym that's the right place for you guys to really thrive is super important. But while we're talking about styles, we actually mentioned you a few weeks ago on the podcast where we were talking about our favorite grapplers to watch. And of course you and your brother come up, and I think one of the things I said was, you guys are probably the only two competitive black belts I watch that I have no idea what the hell you guys are going to do next. Like, I think it was your match at the IBJJF, the Grand Prix thing, in the gi, where I watched you strip a grip from like a De La Hiva, and I'm like, okay, he's going to try, and you just front flipped over the guy. I was like, what the heck is this, man? It's like, where did that craziness come from? Is that just like you and your brother and who you guys are, or did someone teach you guys that stuff?
Right. I think that ability to really scramble, or to really just kind of just flow throughout positionings, came from, honestly, my brother and I training together growing up. When you get to become to adults tend to have sort of this like slow it down strength. They don't want the craziness to happen, right? So you see it all the time. You teach in a kids class, you see them bouncing from one wall off the next, right? So learning to kind of keep that, you could say almost like youthfulness scrambles, but adding technique behind it, so it's not just you're just sending it in every which direction. And I think that was one reason why we were never super into lifting weights. Even to this day, like my brother and I, we were never big weightlifters, really at all, because not to say that that's wrong and whatever. I think there's not one road for everybody. Everyone does things differently. But for us, we use our mobility and our timing and our reactions more than anything, right? So making sure that we're keeping you could say our A game, or our strongest attributes, and not switching it up and really changing. It's like when a golfer has his golf swing and then he gains a bunch of weight, and all of a sudden that golf swing is just nowhere close to the same, right? So really just staying true to what we've always done, and just trying to address that scrambliness. People call it scrambly. What it really is reacting to strength. You can't, if you're weaker than the guy and the guy collar grips you, they teach you a collar grip break, but odds are you're not going to be able to break the collar grip, so ducking underneath that grip, making it useless, and then him letting go because it's a useless grip is usually the way smarter, or at least the way we have to go about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, man, I love to hear it. And I think that's like, you guys are so unique in the way you do things. Do you think it's like an advantage? Obviously, like all these high level black belts, they're all very talented. They're all very skilled, but you guys have such a unique way of approaching grappling. Do you think it's hard for these other guys, like when they're in camps trying to get ready to prepare for you, to like emulate that and figure out, like when I watch, if I can't figure out what you're going to do next, like if I was the coach, I don't know how the heck I would train my students to deal with that. Like, I don't know.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I imagine it's for sure difficult to prepare for. If I didn't train with my brother my entire life, and then I had to go have a match with him, I was like, well, where do I start, right? So, it's definitely a tricky a game that we present, and I believe that a lot of people can acquire the same sort of type of jiu-jitsu, and it really just comes from fighting around strength. That's what it comes down. I say it a lot, but that's really all it comes down to at the end of the day. My brother and I, in our entire lives, we're always the weaker. We were always in kids in the adult classes, right? And even when we became adults, we were still weaker than all the adults in the room. So we were always the weaker guys. So we were forced to use technique and timing to get around strength, and that's why our jiu-jitsu looks like it's all over the place, but we're just negating strength and trying to use your opponent's momentum against them. The easiest way to say that, but yeah.
Oh man, it clearly works. For people who don't know, listening to the podcast, Kade is the, I guess, reigning one lightweight grappling champion, and probably like one thing you might be most known for is the 2022 ADCC under 77 kilo champion, youngest champ in ADCC history, I believe. All submissions. I want to talk a little bit about that run. Obviously, I can't have you on the podcast without talking a bit about the ADCC run. So your first match at ADCC was actually Roberto Jimenez.
That was second, actually. No, first one was Lachlan.
Was it Lachlan first? Okay. Yes, so, like, I don't want to make you mad or anything, but I know you've lost to Roberto a couple times before. How going into that match, like, did you have a different plan? Were you like? I know, like, I've had matches with guys that have beat me before, and I find it really difficult going in knowing that the guys beat me before. Right. How did you approach that match in particular?
Yeah. I won't lie. I'm always 100% truthful. At that point, I was a little. I talked to my professor. We were just talking about it the other day too. I was just talking to him, man. Obviously he knows. I'm like, I got 2 previous losses to Roberto. He beat me 2 times before that. And he reminded me, that the most recent loss, was a war for 15 minutes, right? And then he ended up getting to my back and getting the finish. And it wasn't like I got completely outgunned, but I remember I just flown back from Costa Rica like 2 days before. I wasn't supposed to fight, but I forget who it was initially to fight Roberto, he pulled out. So they're like, you need a replacement. It was like 2 or 3 days notice. So I was like, okay, whatever. We sent it in there. But professor was like, dude, you were in Costa Rica for 3 weeks. You didn't even train. Like, I'm not making excuses any way, shape, or form, but like that wasn't your best version of yourself, and so that was really what kind of put it in perspective. And like, you know what, you're right. I had a real proper camp for this ADCC. I'm a completely different person physically and technically. So really, if you go into a match especially against someone you've already taken an L against, and you go into the mindset of, oh, he's good, he beat me before, he's gonna do the same thing, you're already on the losing end. You gotta understand, every single week we change as athletes, or at least you should be changing, right? So technically, physically, in every way. So that was pretty much the main thing, is knowing that I could beat him, I had the potential to beat him, and I knew that I was physically ready this time. So that's what really
that's awesome, man. Like, that helps me a lot to kind of internalize. The other big match I want to talk about is obviously the finals. We can't talk about ADCC and not talk about the finals. I'll be honest. You cost me. I made a bet picking Mika before the tournament started, so I was a little salty when you won. But fantastic match. What, like, for most grapplers out there? I mean, most people aren't going to win ADCC ever. What does that feel like at the end of that match when he taps and you've just won ADCC, one of the biggest tournaments in grappling? Like, how do you feel in that moment?
Protein is essential for building, repairing, and maintaining muscle, and this is Transparent Labs 100% grass-fed whey protein isolate. It's my go-to protein powder, so I can recover from tough jiu-jitsu sessions as well as tough workouts. While many protein powders from other companies have fillers and artificial ingredients, Transparent Labs lives up to their name, with transparent labels and minimal ingredients that are the highest quality. I love the way it tastes, and I love that I know exactly what I'm putting into my body. So whether you're brand new to protein powder or maybe you've tried them all, supplement smarter by making the switch to Transparent Labs. Click the link below or use code Jordan for 10% off your order.
You've just won ADCC, one of the biggest tournaments in grappling. Like, how do you feel in that moment?
I hate to be cliche. But I promise you, it's one of those. It's like a lost for words type situation. Like, don't really have the words to describe that. I mean, for a surfer, the barrel is the ultimate. There's no better feeling than getting barreled in surfing. When the waves full, when you're in the barrel, there's water surrounding you, and every angle you hear the sound of the barrel. It's the most, 1 second feels like 10 seconds in the barrel. It's the most, one of the most adrenaline packed things you could possibly go through, and it felt like a 1 minute straight barrel. I mean, like, I don't know how to explain it. There's just no words to describe it. It almost felt unreal. Aside from that, just relief I always say that relief was the other big thing, because anytime you step foot into something, you have the potential to get the job done. It's just a matter of going out there and actually getting the job done. So once the job was done, I was just like, like, wow, I couldn't believe I'm stoked I did it, for sure.
I think that's a really interesting thing for a lot of competitors. I know some of my students have said the same thing. They'll win and I'll be like, how do you feel, man? And they're like, I don't feel good. I just feel like relief that it's done and I didn't screw up. I didn't, fail at that big stage. So I think for a lot of people out there to hear you say something like that, like that'll really help them feel better. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is something like, I don't have any brothers. I got a wife who competes occasionally though. And for me or my students, I guess is another big one, but obviously your brother's competing at ADCC too, doesn't go as deep in his weight class and then has that crazy run in the absolute division. How do you guys like watching the success and, the losses of each other in these tournaments while you also have to focus on yourself and your own game? Like, how do you guys manage that? Do you just, kind of like, I'm going to focus on me today, or do you let it get you hyped up when he wins? Or like, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. It's more so that the second, your last statement there is, we try to feed off each other's energy. Ty had that shocker in his weight division. I think a lot of things attributed to that. I think, especially like it was the first feedback he gave me coming after that first match. He's like, bro, like first things first, focus on your breath because the air is real thin in Vegas. It's a lot more dry, and first thing is, you could lose air or you lose that breath so much quicker out there. So almost like you're fighting in Colorado or something like that. You just got to be really present and weary about your breathing. That was the first thing he came back. And obviously we were all shocked and a little bit distraught after Ty's loss. You're like, well, what happened? Like, I thought for sure 100% Ty was going to get the gold in his division. And it happens to the best of us. Sometimes we just have a little shocker and it's just not our day, right? And for Ty, I had to go fight Lachlan right after Ty had lost to Josh, right? So, I was almost bummed because, the easiest way to put it is like when you're going through war, right? When you're going through war, you don't want to be alone. You want friends and people with you to fight in the war, right? You don't want to be alone in any war. So after Ty lost, it was I felt almost like, oh man, I got to go through this alone, each round. So I got the first one done and I forgot even about the absolute, so I really just had to take it match by match. And instead of, we've always kind of done things together. Instead of doing it together, it was like, dang, I gotta, this one's on me now, and that was a lot of, honestly, it was added pressure, so, especially from the parents, because I'm like, ain't no way mom and dad are getting, two sons that took L's, there's no way. So, definitely a bit of added pressure. But, one thing that Ty is really good at, no matter what his result is or whatever, he's there to be there for me. And the same for me. Even if I take an L or whatever happens, I'm not going to be sitting back there crying and get right back on and be chilling with my brother for his next match, because his wins are my wins and his losses are my losses, So that's the way we try to think about things.
I mean, clearly it works. That's an amazing outlook. Last question about the ADCC, and then we'll move on. You guys have been super outspoken, the whole time about PEDs and that you guys are natural. I think it was on your Instagram page. You guys share your like little, the test results for the drug testing at one to say that you're natural. How do you think, ADCC, like how different would it look like the results and who's winning if there was drug testing? And like, how does it feel going out there knowing that you're a natural athlete and that a lot of these guys probably aren't?
I think if there was drug testing in ADCC, there wouldn't be an ADCC. I think that's why there's not drug testing at ADCC. Imagine if they're like, hey, we're testing this ADCC. I think 98% of athletes would drop out, or 99% of athletes. I'm honestly at the point in life where I'm kind of over throwing shade on steroids just because I would have never thought I get flack for saying stuff like that, but there's so many, people coming back adding us and as far as just like, oh, but these guys need it or you guys don't know, like I don't know. People say the craziest stuff, and it is what it is. At the end of the day, I'm kind of over it. People can do whatever they want. I think it's cheating. I think it's unfair. That's the way I think of it in every sport. There's a reason why it's not prohibited in most sports. But technically in ADCC they don't even test, so it's hard to say that it's not allowed, right? So or it's illegal to do it or whatever you want to call it. So to me, it's it's whatever. If my brother and I, we really pride ourselves on our pacing, on our technique, and more than anything our mentals. And I know that our mentals is as strong as it is because we don't do things like that. And we're able just to kind of just outwork these guys because of our mentals. Yeah, it's at the point where it is what it is. I don't think there'll ever be a day where there's not a huge amount of steroids being used in jiu-jitsu. Honestly, my main goal from just being, speaking out on it is just to have like the next generations to cut it from 98% of people doing steroids to maybe hopefully the next generation could kind of follow suit, and maybe there's a day where there's 50-50 or something like that, because you see it happening earlier and earlier and earlier in these kids. Like, yeah, so Mika got popped for steroids, and I mean, I'm sure he was doing it a long time before he got popped. And these kids are starting at 15, 16 years old, and it's so gnarly. It's so I don't think they're understanding quite what they're doing to their bodies. That they're looking for the short term goals and that short term, good feeling. But down the line, it's going to be, we've seen it time and time again. So guys like Gordon's only competing once a year at ADCC because of his stomach problems and things like that. I think it targets a lot of. But the thing is too, these kids are going out here and doing steroids. By kids, by anything from juvenile to young adults, right? They're going out here and they're loading up on all these steroids wherever they're getting them, and they're not even doing the proper test to see if they got like a premature cancer or premature this, or I mean, there's so many bad things that could come from it, aside from just being unfair to your opponents that are fighting naturally. So just kind of against it in all ways, but I'm at the point where people can do whatever they want because we're gonna do what we can do, everything just to keep our mental strong, our technique sharp, and still get the wins.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer, man. I think that's really mature from you guys to kind of say those kinds of things, and I agree with you. Like, for the guys who are older in like their 40s and stuff, I understand. Like, maybe I'm 32, 31, 32. I don't know. I'm not taking anything. I never have. There are days I think about it though, man. When you start getting older, it starts to add up. But when you see these young kids taking it, that stuff to me, like, you don't know what you're doing to your body. And sure, it's nice to win tournaments when you're 18, but is it going to be worth it if you're dead at 35? I don't think so, but I'd like to see the sport move a little bit away from it.
I couldn't agree more. Like you said, like, the older generation, if you're any sort of hobbyist or you just enjoy, jiu-jitsu, as far as, you got love for jiu-jitsu and you're older or whatever, I mean, I'm all for it. Do whatever, we don't care. Do whatever you want. It's your life. Like, especially if you're doing it like the right way through doctors and stuff like that, like, go for it. No stress. The only times that we're kind of heated is when, I slap hands and all of a sudden this guy's got 3 traps on him. He's got 2 left. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a tough one, So, and then obviously, we're doing everything natural. So that's really the only times that we kind of have an issue with it. But it was always those guys that were commenting too. Oh, how you try to be 40 and doing this and that. I'm like, no, you guys do whatever you want. I'm not adding you guys. It's the guys that I'm fighting. But
keep it in the masters divisions. Keep let them have their fun.
Exactly. Keep it for the masters, right? Like that. I think that would be a cool thing. You don't even test the masters. Let them do their thing. Just test the adults. Just test the where the professionalism lies.
Mm-hmm. So I want to obviously like segue past the ADCC. If you win that, you're on top of the world, like one of the most famous guys in grappling. I know you'd had one match, I think, with ONE FC before ADCC with, I believe that was the Aoki match, correct?
Yep, I believe.
Yeah, and then obviously keep that momentum going. Some really tough matches, honestly. Like, you have not had an easy schedule with some of those guys that ONE has given you. Can you tell me about like your relationship with ONE, how you guys got signed there? And one question I've always had is, when I know your brother signed there as well, were you guys a package deal? Like, when they approached one of you, were you like, you got to take both of us?
Yeah, we did do it as like a together thing. We signed at the same time, everything at the same time. I don't know if it like I won because we both wanted to, right? I don't know if Ty was like, hey, if I didn't want to, I'm sure they probably would have just done one or the other. But yeah, we did it as I like to think that at least. Well, yeah, we did it as a package deal, and no, yeah, super happy with our decision. Obviously, the whole Flow grappling crew isn't really stoked on it, but everyone besides that, I'm really stoked on the platform and the legitimacy that they bring. There's the show is amazing to be a part of. To be able to watch all the other fights and just to be a part of an atmosphere and environment. It feels like you're fighting at a true highest on a real show. It's amazing, and it's on Amazon Prime. There's lots of people watching, so there's a lot of added pressure. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you've had some great matches there too. I'm sure they're happy to get you guys to put on that show. Like those matches with Langacker were Those were good matches, man. They were really fun to watch. For people listening, coming up, September 6th in Denver. We talked about that thin hair earlier. At least you're prepared for it. Mikey Musumeci. Is that a match that you wanted? Like, was this you wanting it, or did they approach you offering it to you? How did that come about?
Yeah. To be entirely honest, it definitely wasn't one that I was asking for. I'd feel weird asking for a smaller opponent than me, and I've never done that, and I never will. It was one they've offered me a handful of times, and I've never declined a matchup in Jiu-Jitsu. Any matchups that's ever been offered to me, I've never declined. I think there was one time I had to postpone one, but other than that, I've never declined a match offer. And so when they came, I seen a lot of people commenting, "Oh, imagine Kade versus Mikey, the Kade versus Mikey matchup." Da 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 da. And there was a couple times in talks, through the promotion of it almost happening and then ended up falling through, but. I've always pretty much said yes to everything. So, I love jiu-jitsu. I love my job, and I'm down to fight anyone and to fight as often as possible. So, yeah, it definitely wasn't a match that I was asking for, but, if that's the match that the people want to see, and a lot of people consider him pound for pound one of the best, right? So, that's what they're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great grappler. I learned my lesson at ADCC, though. I'm not picking against you again. I'm not having that happen. Is there anything about Mikey specifically that you think might be like a challenge? I don't obviously want you to give away like a game plan or anything in here that someone might listen to, but is there anything about him you think poses like a unique challenge or specifically to him?
I think Mikey is similar to Lachlan in a way where they're extremely sticky on the legs. You can't really let them get too close to anything. Once they get onto the leg, they're such a specialist as far as their details, in finishing leg locks and securing, deeper leg lock positions. It's kind of just like, once you underhook me and I get that hand around your neck, that Darce is pretty much going to get there, right? So, they're really good specialists in the legs. And, aside from that, my brother and I, we've done a lot of leg lock defense. We kind of pride ourselves on leg lock defense. We've last time we got leg lock was when we were kids for the ADCC trials before we really started working on leg lock defense. So I believe that's going to be his goal, is to get to a leg. I think it's his how could I say it? Like, the most respectful way possible. I think that's his only chance is to get onto my legs and maybe possibly transition that to like a back take or something. But I think his best bet, or he's banking on probably some sort of foot lock, whether it's a heel hook or one of those straight foot locks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, when my students have asked me about the match, I kind of had the same assessment. I think it's pretty obvious what Mikey is probably going to try to do, what his A game is, but I think a lot of people want to see, can you do it? Obviously, you and your brother have been notoriously difficult to leg lock. I mean, your match with Lachlan's a great example. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Before that fight, you have an MMA fight coming up, your MMA debut. So I know when you signed with one, it was an MMA and grappling contract. What made you want to transition to MMA? Obviously, winning ADCC, a lot of success in grappling. A lot of people just stick with that route. What made you want to branch out and take on something like that that's more challenging and people might say is also more dangerous?
Yeah, I wouldn't say just one. There's one reason. There's a couple of different things. For one, I've always had love for it. I've always loved fighting. I've always felt like I love jiu-jitsu with all my heart, but there's a lot of rules and things like that in place where it doesn't allow me to bring all the fight that I have in me out of me. So I believe that I could have a massive future in MMA, and I just love it from a refreshing. Like, it's just refreshing to learn something new every day. So it feels like I'm back at a blue belt, back at a white belt with the the striking and everything like that. So for one, I love it. And for two, my lifelong goal has always been to be a martial artist, not just a jiu-jitsu guy. Even when I'm done with MMA, I'm going to definitely be taking up, I'll forever be taking up martial arts, no matter what martial art it is. So, after my MMA, my goals and dreams, after I get there, who knows, maybe a little bit of, Jeet Kune Do or whatever it may be next. There's a lot of different martial arts out there that are amazing, and I fascinate over them, so. Besides just having love for it and wanting to just kind of step my toes and get the main thing was I just wanted to get it done before ADCC, because I know how we're gonna have to lock in for that, and then wouldn't be able to do that until later this year, that MMA debut. So I was like, it's getting done.
That's awesome. I can tell you definitely love it. You're passionate about it. What's your training look like these days? Like, are you guys doing like, what's your balance between MMA and jiu-jitsu? Obviously, I know with an MMA fight coming up, I assume you're doing a lot of striking training, wrestling, stuff like that. How do you kind of balance the two things?
Yeah. As of recently, it's been a lot more striking, of course, as wrestling, as you said, things like that. Um, it's not uncommon for us to take breaks in jiu-jitsu. We've always taken a lot of breaks in jiu-jitsu. Not that I'm going to be breaking from jiu-jitsu until my MMA fight. But putting it on the back burner a little bit, as you could say, not training every single day jiu-jitsu, right? Or most of my training sessions jiu-jitsu. So my technique obviously still feels sharp. I'm still flowing it when it comes up to jiu-jitsu portion, but throughout every single day, just working my striking, whether it's just mitt work or sparring or whatever it may be. Just making sure that the upper body catches on too.
Oh, that's awesome. When you guys do train, I know are you still at Atos right now? I know you and your brother had been talking about opening your own academy at some point. Has that happened already?
Yeah, so has it happened? No, full time out of Atos as of now for all of our jiu-jitsu. I've been striking up north and around Huntington Beach area, and right now I'm here in Fullerton. Just got done with my striking over here at CSW with Eric Paulson, and then was more MMA class. And I've also been working a lot with Tyler Wombles over at Classic Fight Team. Love both of those guys. Those guys are both legends. But yeah, so all of my striking's kind of been up north more, so I haven't been down in San Diego as much. But yeah, still out of San Diego full time for my jiu-jitsu.
Awesome. So like when you train, are you doing a lot of drilling? Are you doing a lot of like positional rounds, rolling? I ask because we've had a bunch of debates on this podcast about our gym uses, like, I don't know if you've heard of it, the ecological approach. It's a lot of like games and everything is live all the time. We don't do a lot of drilling. And I was curious just because of how, like we talked about earlier, your style, how you and your brother are so reactive and so good in these positions. I would assume you don't do a ton of like static drilling and that you guys do a lot of live work.
Hey, that's a very impressive observation right there, because that's not something that we tell a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've never really been super big into just drilling, because when are you ever? I mean, I understand, drilling it 10 times to install it into your mind, but whenever you ever gone into a competition and the guy's just, you do a knee cut and the guy just sits there on his back like, your partner does when it's just not realistic, So I understand to drill to understand it and understand how the technique works, but once you understand it, it doesn't take more than a handful of minutes to understand the technique, as long as you truly understand it. And then once you understand a technique, we're huge more into like specific trainings. That's really how we figured out how to defend leg locks. In the most humble way possible. I don't think guys were properly defending leg locks the same way my brother and I were until our leg lock defense started getting out there more. I think we did a lot of things unique, and it was the same way. It was every single day we're starting in heel hooks, and you could just sit there drilling, but I mean the drill's only gonna do so much for you. But you start in a heel hook and kind of work backwards. Okay, why is this heel hook? Oh, this arms is creating torque and his hips are pushed. Okay, so if I grab his arms, hook his head, now he can't pull back. Now it's releasing some of the pressure. Now I got to do is break this grip. Things like that. Starting in like specific trainings, I think, can be so much more beneficial than just stagnant drilling.
No, I couldn't agree more. My whole gym, our philosophy of coaching is all based around that. I like to tell my students that, I can show you all these moves and stuff, but the best thing I can do for you is put you in these positions, kind of guide you, but let you figure stuff out. Think about it. Like obviously when you were explaining, you're in the positions, you're thinking about, oh, this is doing this is doing this. That to me is what makes people really good grapplers, is that ability to problem solve. So I know I don't want to keep you too long. I just want to ask a couple last questions before we go. I know you're big into surfing. You mentioned earlier it's a surfing analogy. Do you think there's any like correlation between the skills for surfing and jiu-jitsu? Does it help your jiu-jitsu, or is it just something you like doing because it's fun?
Oh, both for sure. Yeah. I love surfing with all my heart, just as much as anything, really. I started all my sports at the same time, so surfing's been in our life just as long as jiu-jitsu. And yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is probably surfing's probably one of the greatest cross trainings that you can do for jiu-jitsu for sure. As I mentioned, we never really lifted our entire lives weight-wise. We were never like weight guys in the weight room. But we surfed our entire lives, and it's not that we're always the strongest guys, but we're not super weak, right? We got decent backs. We got a lot of traps and things like that. So I like to say a lot of it comes from surfing. I've even trained jiu-jitsu with, like I remember training with Kelly Slater when I was a Grom, and he was like a blue belt back in the day. And I remember I was just training with him and how strong his upper body was. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's ridiculous. Even my father, my dad, a surfer his entire life. He grabs onto you and you feel that surfer strength. It's a real thing. Every time you take a paddle, it's like using your lats and all your muscles with like a 2 pound weight, right? So, and you're doing that for hours sometimes. So, you can only imagine how much good on the cardio and muscular it can be. And of course the balance, and, there's so much attributes.
It makes a ton of sense. I used to train with a guy who was really big into rowing, like in one of those like canoes or some sort of boat or something. And every time he grabbed you, it just felt like a hippopotamus squeezing. I was like, I don't understand how this guy's so strong. He doesn't lift weights, but it's like that strength from just paddling all the time. Last fun question I want to ask you before you go. Obviously, you and your brother's like, you got an easy way to tell you apart is you've got the crazy hair, man. Does the hair ever get in the way when you roll? I used to have long hair, and I know a lot of the girls I've trained with have said the same thing. It's always in the way. There's always like a knee on it or something pinning it to the ground. How do you deal with that thing, man?
Dude, yeah. At first, it would always get in the way. I think of it that way, right? And then it's always in my face or whatever, getting pulled or whatever. And, there's a certain point in time where all those hair pulls kind of stop hurting. Like your hair almost gets used to it, I feel like. I hate to say it, almost like a chick. Chicks claim I don't really feel this, It's like, it's true. Like those nerves kind of go away somehow. So when people pull my hair, I don't really feel it. As far as the hair going in my face and stuff, though, I always just think, man, if it goes in my face, it could go in theirs. You see me in against Mika Galval ADCC finals. I was using it a lot when he was in closed guard. I kept putting my hair like all up in his face, so he tried to get his head on the other side, and I put it right back there. I just kind of messing with them, but I just kind of thought of it now as to use it rather than use it against me, right? But aside from that, I think I've just been, it's been a couple of years I've had this hair, so I think I've just kind of grown used to it, to be honest with you.
Oh, I love it, man. That's awesome. Use it as a weapon. So I'll let you get out of here. Can you just tell people where they can find you, social media, where they can follow you, anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. Both my brother and I, we share that main account, Ruotolo Brothers Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, that's all of. If you guys want to keep tabs, that's pretty much where we post most of our accomplishments and what we're doing on the day to day. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and yeah, hope to see you guys all at the next ADCC One Championships, wherever it may be.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you. People, you can catch Kade 1FC MMA fight June 7th. Grappling match with Mikey Maia September 6th. ADCC. Check them all out. Be a fan of the guy. Give him a follow. Thank you so much.
Right on, Joy. Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.